If someone were to ask me my what would be my recommendation for the most authentic or best source of knowledge for meditation, particularly yogic meditation, one particular text that, in my opinion, would be the most useful one. If someone was interested in meditating daily and learning to go deep within meditation, then without a doubt, in my personal experience, my answer would be the Yoga Sutras of Patanjali. This is not talking about philosophy because my favorite philosophy books are a bit different, but purely from the perspective of meditation, to be honest, the most insightful text that I have ever come across is the Yoga Sutras of Patanjali. And the great thing about it is obviously the fact that it was written a long time ago. So Patanjali was an Indian sage who lived around the 2nd and 4th century BC, and he it's not that he brought in any new knowledge. At least I'm not sure, but I don't think so. Knowledge about yogic practices was always there and it was always available. It's just that before Patanjali, it was passed on orally, from the mouths of the teacher to the student, and so on, generation after generation. And what Patanjali did was that he compiled and brought all of this knowledge together into his verses or sutras. And sutras mean threads or thread like. So if you look at this, if you actually look at the original text of Patanjali, and it is just a series of 196 verses, which are just 196 short sentences in Sanskrit, and then of course these can be translated in various different languages. I don't know Sanskrit, even I read the English versions of it. I can understand a little bit of it, but not much. But regardless, the verses of Patanjali, they contain a very systematic approach to yoga and yogic meditation, again, in particular. The whole of 196 verses are divided into 4 sections or 4 chapters, and a lot of different interesting topics are covered in it. But something that I would be looking at today is a part of the Eightfold Path of Yoga. So Patanjali introduces an eightfold path, like I said, towards attaining success in yogic meditation. And the path consists of 8 steps, as the name suggests. It starts with the yamas, niyam, asana, pranayam, pratyahar, dharana, dhyan, and samadhi. So these are the 8 different steps. Today we will be looking at some of the initial stages, but just for translation, yamas mean things that you don't do, things to avoid. Niyam is the things that you do, you cultivate. Asana means the posture and that you sit in when you meditate. Pranayam, pran meaning life force, and yam means control. So pranayam means regulating and controlling your life force, which is often linked with your breath. Pratyahar is internalization of awareness. Dharana is concentration. Dhyan is meditation. And samadhi is oneness or cognitive absorption. So these are the 8 steps. It could be a bit confusing right now because I just went through all of them quite quickly, and it may not have made much sense, but that's all right for now. But if you actually notice that I said meditation at the very end, because it was like the 7th step out of the 8th, because that is what it actually is like. Meditation happens very late, and it is a lot of people find it difficult to meditate at the beginning, and oftentimes that is simply because you have not done the first 6 steps, and unless you do the first 6 ones, meditation will always be hard and it will always be difficult. Logically speaking, if you look at it, first he recommends some lifestyle practices, some do's and don'ts that you do, that you have to follow when you are out there living your normal day-to-day life. Then he says that you sit in a steady posture. Then he says that you control your breath and focus on your breath. Then you learn to turn your awareness within. So moving away from all these distractions and going within, focusing on your body and different parts within yourself, within your brain, and so on. Then dharana, which means concentration. So you pick something to concentrate on, such as a mantra or so, and once you start concentrating on it, you keep concentrating on it, you keep focusing on it, you meditate on it continuously, holding your awareness there, and ultimately what you achieve is samadhi, which is you become one with the object that you're focusing on. So what I like about this, and what anyone would should like about this, is like I said, it's a very systematic process. It is laid out quite well, and it makes sense logically also, and it makes sense practically also when you actually apply it and use it. So I think for someone who is interested in meditation and learning to go deep within, it is definitely quite useful to look at the Yoga Sutras and study them, understand them, and apply those, because they will truly, genuinely make life a lot easier for you. But going into today's topic, I will be looking at the yamas and the niyamas, which is the things that you do and you don't do. These will help create foundations for a proper yogic lifestyle. And the reason these are imposed is not because Patanjali wanted to punish you or something like that, or he wants to control you and says, like, okay, you will do as I say and you will not do the things that I don't ask you to do. The reason these are prescribed is because the ultimate goal of yoga is, of course, enlightenment and self-realization and God realization. And for someone who is an enlightened person, these things, the yamas and niyamas, these are very natural and normal. So they don't have to consciously practice them. It is just the way in which they behave. And for someone who is aspiring to reach that state, it is important for us to practice them and to emulate them. So if you want to be, oftentimes if you look up YouTube, you will find all these videos about, oh, I tried out this person's writing routine, and I tried out this athlete's workout, and all those kinds of things. So if you want to be a successful athlete, you work out like them. If you want to be a successful writer, you learn to write like them. Similarly, if you want to be successful with on a spiritual level, you emulate the people that have already been successful on the spiritual paths, and those people naturally behave in a way that is in line with the yamas and niyamas. So there are five yamas and five niyamas. So the first one is truthfulness, and I said that the yamas are don'ts. So does that mean that you don't speak the truth? No, of course not. Truthfulness is essentially, to be honest, truth is always there. The natural thing to do or the right thing to do is to simply be truthful. But it is only when we get our minds involved and we have all these ideas about this is what I want to do, this is the right, when we get the little I and involved, when we get our little minds involved, that we start to distort the truth, so that it is based off of our liking, so that maybe people perceive us differently, so that maybe we can do what we want. Who knows why people lie? I don't. I haven't. I usually don't lie, because not just because of this, but even before I came across these, because I don't think it's useful. But so yeah, truth is like a force, and even within yourself, if you meditate on truth, if you contemplate truth, it is like a force that you can feel it within your heart, within your chest, and every time you lie, you can feel, at least I do, and I've heard from other people who follow this path, I've heard from them as well, that lying is like I don't know how to describe it, but it's like something within you is just getting clogged up or congested, but truth makes you feel open and expansive and so on. So truth will encourage you to cultivate more clarity of awareness. Truth will make you feel clear within yourself. It will make you feel confident. Truth. will also just make you an honest person, in the sense that you do what you want to do. And instead, so for instance, um, if your friend was inviting you out somewhere, and you don't want to go, but if you're completely truthful and honest about it, you would just say that, you don't want to go there, and you would rather just be at home, um, meditating or reading or whatever it is that you want to do. But instead of being completely truthful, if you thought that, okay, maybe this person will feel bad if I don't go, and you follow along with them, go with them wherever they take you. Not only you are just making yourself miserable because you didn't really want to go there. So by going there, you're suffering there as well because you're not enjoying it. But at the same time, you're also missing out on whatever it was that you would have done if you would have stayed home. And that eventually hurts your mental peace, because then later on you don't feel good because it's like you wasted your time. So that is why it's important to be truthful, because from a very simple and mundane perspective, because it will help your mental peace. It is just far easier to be honest with people and say that, this is what I'm interested in, this is what not something that I'm not interested in, and I would rather not be doing this, and I would rather be doing this. And so it helps out from that sense. Another thing about lying is that, so if someone asks you, let's take the same example. If someone invites you out for dinner and you don't want to go, if you were truthful, you would just say that, I don't want to go, I would rather stay at home. But if you were to lie, then you will have to come up with an excuse to say that, I have to do this thing, and then if they counter question you, then you have to come up with other excuses as well. So it's quite a common phenomenon that once you lie, you have to come up with 100 other lies just to protect that one lie. So again, you see, you're losing out on your mental energy, so to speak, because now you have to constantly think about the various lies and the impact of it, and how do you lie that you make sure, because even while lying you have to make sure that you don't get caught, because if you get caught lying, then that is always a bad thing. So lying just takes too much effort, to be honest. And what we are trying to do is that we're trying to conserve our effort, our mental juice and energy, so that we can use it towards other more creative things and better things, such as meditation and so on. I think meditation is hard enough already, and it requires a lot of mental mental energy. So don't lie and save your energy and use it for meditation. So truthfulness is something that you have to practice, and you have to be. It is one of the yamas to cultivate. It is not optional. If you're serious about it, then you just have to do it, and you have to find a way to make it work. Then there is ahimsa, which is non-violence. At the end, if you look at enlightenment traditions, or Vedantic knowledge, or any religion in the world, what they will ultimately say is that everything is one infinite consciousness, and we are just part of this one whole. We are not separate tiny beings. We are all one whole experiencing universe, experiencing our own divinity through various different perspectives and point of views. So essentially, if you are being violent towards someone else, you're only hurting yourself from a picture, so, from the big picture. So that is why it is important to be non-violent, because I think another way to look at non-violence is, of course, that it helps you cultivate empathy. Um, you learn to see yourself in other beings as well. So instead of thinking that, okay, this is just someone I can hurt and get away with, you learn to see that the same spirit that is within you is within that being as well. So hurting them is just hurting your very own self. It's oftentimes when, if you see posts against racism or something, there are oftentimes that, the skin color might be different, but within the skeleton is always the same. The organs are the same. At the end of it all, we are all human beings. So, you know, racism is quite pointless, but it's the same thing at the end of, we are all externally covered in different bodies, different shapes, different sizes, but even different species. But ultimately, we are all part of one infinite ocean of spirit, and we are all just different, smaller facets of it. So, why why hurt someone else? You know, sometimes it's not optional. Sometimes you do. So, for example, if you were killed, stranded on a desert island, then yes, you would probably have to kill a fish or some animal to survive, and that's a different thing. But when it's necessary, it needs to be done. But what non-violence really means is losing the intention to kill or hurt someone. So, for instance, if you enjoy being violent and if you enjoy hurting someone else, then you are not following non-violence. But if you acknowledge the fact that, this is something that needs to be done for my own survival and for my own sake, then practicing non-violence or practicing violence in that sense is all right. But to be honest, I wouldn't consider that violence either. So, because again, we're talking about the desert island situation here, because human a human being is a higher species. It is a more evolved being than, say, a fish or an animal. So letting a human being die in, to protect a lower being such as an animal is not righteous, not dharmic as per the scriptures. So in that case, it's probably fine. But for the most part, none of us are getting stranded on desert islands. So do practice non-violence. When you see beings around you, when you see people around you, just make sure that you do not intend to hurt them. You do not enjoy hurting them, and yeah, try to practice it the best that you can do. Next, we have asteya, which means non-stealing. Stealing affirms a sense of lack. It means that what you have is not enough. That is why you are stealing from someone else. If you know a little bit about money mindset and attracting money and having an abundance mindset, usually the mindset that anyone who is preaching this would recommend you to cultivate is that we live in an infinite universe with infinite resources, and there is infinite money, and you can attract money, you can create value in other people's life, and so on. And that is actually the truth. Spirit is infinite, and whatever it is that you desire, it can be experienced by you. It is possible, one way or the other. And by stealing, you are denying that truth. You are saying that you are a limited being. You have, like I said, limited resources, and in order to make yourself feel better or fulfilled, you need to steal from someone else. And again, there has to be a someone else to steal with. And I think, to a certain extent, I think I would imagine that a little bit of that sentiment of hurting someone else or harming someone else also comes in here, because by stealing you're also harming them in a way. So oftentimes these yamas and niyamas, these are all interconnected. So there is a yam called brahmacharya, which often means vital, using your vital resources well. So like I said, with truthfulness, lying is a drain of mental energy, and brahmacharya is something, and you must also practice vital use of your resources, which is why you again practice truthfulness. So you see those two came in line. Similarly, non-violence and non-stealing can also come in line. There is a niyam called contentment, and if you were content with what you have, would you really have to steal something from someone else? So yeah, I think that is how all of these different come together, and I think it's quite fascinating. But coming back to Non-stealing, yeah, don't steal. I think this is, I think a lot of these are quite straightforward. At least to me personally, these are quite simple and straightforward. And this is what it means to be a, if you are a healthy, happy, psychologically stable human being, I wouldn't expect you to have a whole lot of difficulty with these. But even if you do, that's totally fine. It's not a problem. But the important thing is to learn to cultivate them and practice them. And there are different levels of practicing this as well. So on a physical level, you may not go out and steal someone's money or motorcycle or car or something like that. But even if you see something and within your mind you think that okay, if you see it happens with me often. I see a motorcycle passing and I'm like, wow, that's a gorgeous motorcycle. And if you think, oh, I want it, then in a way you are mentally stealing it from them. That is not appropriate. So every time that happens, you have to learn to get rid of that thought that, okay, I'm happy for them that they have that thing, but I do not want it, and I'm not trying to steal it from them. Nonviolence also needs to be practiced on a mental level as well. So you may not hurt someone physically, but you can always hurt someone mentally. And you can oftentimes have the intention of hurting someone, on a mental level. So that is also something that needs to be practiced, um, and avoided. So the next one is aparigraha, which is non-possessiveness. Being possessive about something means that you are attached to them, and being successful on the spiritual path often requires non-attachment. If you're possessive, then you are limiting yourself and your identity to that particular thing, or those few particular things, and the loss of those things will harm you quite a bit, and they will affect your mental peace and your mental well-being. And possessiveness also oftentimes means that you have to put in extra effort and go out of your way to take care of those things. And again, I think it's just a drain of energy, and it will keep coming up if you're trying to meditate, and if you're possessive about something and something is going wrong with it. Like maybe your car broke down and you were really possessive about it, and you were trying to meditate, then you would constantly keep having thoughts about your car, that okay, it's not working very well, I'm not happy, and it will just distract you and get in your way. While if you're not non-possessive about it, if you're non-attached to it, then you could just let it go, and you could continue focusing on the breath or the point between the eyebrows, whatever it was that your meditation practice required you to do. And lastly, we have brahmacharya. Brahmacharya is usually translated to celibacy, but if you break the word down, Brahma means the supreme consciousness, spirit, and charya means walking. So brahmacharya means walking in God, or being in that state of um, supreme consciousness, spirit, God consciousness. Someone who is in that state won't really care about sexuality or sensual objects and things like that. They will not lust after those things, and they will use their vital resources well. So brahmacharya is often about learning to use your vital resources well. Let all the different resources that you have in your life, your finances, your energy, physically and mentally, your thoughts, learning to regulate all of these and using them well, so that all of them ultimately lead you and help you in your goal towards success on the yogic path. So these were the yamas. And moving on, if you have any questions, feel free to drop them down in the comments below. And now we look at the niyamas, which starting with is some shoch. Shoch can often be translated into cleanliness, and if you look at it, it's but that it can also be translated to purity. So, if from a cleanliness perspective, live in a clean environment, have a clean body, have a clean mind. And purity is the same thing. Live in a pure as an environment as best you can. Eating pure foods, drinking pure water, breathing in pure air. These are quite difficult, especially for me, living here in Mumbai. But you do your best that you can, and what you can't control is beyond you. So don't bother about it too much. But purity is also about having purity in thoughts and purity in actions. One of the most useful ways in which my teacher explained purity to me was being intentional and pure with the thoughts that you have and with the actions that you perform. So, for instance, if you're doing something, then like if you're working, then you're purely focused on your work alone for the duration of it. When you're meditating, you're purely focusing on the meditation. When you're eating, you're purely focusing on the food. So purity, when you practice purity in that sense and through the different activities that you do, and within your mind as well, having a pure state of mind. A pure mind is something that is not rampant with random thoughts, and it is just not overthinking and having all sorts of thoughts troubling it all the time. If that is the case, then that is not a pure mind. A pure mind is something that is calm, serene, peaceful. So learning to cultivate that, a pure mind, and purity in your actions out into the world, those will highly benefit you on the spiritual paths, on when you meditate, because learning to control your mind will and having a pure mind just makes meditation a lot easier, because that means you have that many less thoughts to distract you and worry you. Next, I think we have santosh, which is contentment. Contentment is quite, I think it's quite simple and self-explanatory, but it is not. It may not be super easy to practice. Contentment. I think there's a quote. There is no way to happiness. Happiness is the way, and I think the same is true for contentment. There is no way to contentment. Contentment is the way. Contentment is just something that you need to cultivate. Why? I don't have an answer for that. To be honest, it seems like a very contentment is very useful. To be honest, I don't have much to say about this because it just baffles me every time. It's I would only recommend one thing with contentment. It is that it is just something you can practice, and then you will know what it is about and how useful and beneficial it is. Practice contentment in all circumstances, in all situations, at all times, no matter what happens to you, no matter when it happens, no matter what is going on. Always learn to be content within. Contentment is invaluable. It is priceless. If you create a fortitude of contentment within yourself, trust me, it is just, like I said, it is invaluable. Nothing in life can be worse. That nothing in life will be stronger than that. So contentment is just, it's fantastic if you learn to practice it. So I would recommend you contemplate on this, meditate on this, and every day try to practice a little bit of it, and through the different circumstances. And once you get a hang of it, once you actually start to see how it works and what it's like to be content, then that is when you will understand why it needs to be practiced and how useful it is. I can't, I don't have a way to describe it or a way to justify it or how useful it is or to sell it to you. But if you will practice it, you will know it, and then I won't have to sell it to you anyway. Then we have, so we're done with all the five yamas, and we are done with two niyamas. The next niyama is tapas, which is penance or sacrifice, and I often like to think of it as discipline as well. Um, Again, quite straightforward. Meditating every day requires discipline. It requires penance. It requires sacrifice. So I like to play my Xbox. I like to go out and have fun with my friends, go for drives, ride my motorcycle. But every day for an hour or so, Out of the 24 hours of my day, I take 1 hour every day and I sacrifice that hour for my meditation. And you would have to do that as well. Not 1 hour necessarily, depends on where you are and how much time you have and how much you can meditate. But even if you say you start with 5 minutes, then you have to sacrifice scrolling Instagram for 5 minutes a day because you are spending those 5 minutes meditating or reading or watching videos like this and so on. So tapas is quite important, and it needs to be practiced without. I think sacrifices, discipline, tapas, penance, these are things. Anyone who wants to be successful at anything needs to do this. If you want to be a successful athlete, you have to give up other things and focus on your sport for long hours, for many years. If you want to be a successful musician, you have to practice, 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 and give up other things. So the same is true here. If you want to be successful here, if you want to be a successful yogi, if you want to be self-realized and enlightened, then you have to practice tapas. Then there is swadhyaya, which is self-study. Swa meaning self and dhyaya meaning study. So swadhyaya is, it can be interpreted in two ways. Self-study, one in the sense that you study your very own self. So you study your body, you study your mind, but most importantly, you study yourself, self with a capital S, the soul, the pure infinite consciousness, the witnessing presence that you are. So you learn, you contemplate, who am I? You contemplate what is it that is having this experience, what is it that witnesses all the life experiences here that you have been through, and you study that and you learn to observe that and remain as that. So that is one way of looking at self-study. And the other way of looking at self-study is the simple way that every day or so, regularly, as often as you can, you spend some time and study sacred spiritual literature, such as the Yoga Sutras of Patanjali, the Bhagavad Gita, Vasisha's Yoga. You watch videos like these, you gain information that is useful and helpful. You do all these different kinds of things, and you spend time by yourself studying, contemplating, reading, trying to understand, trying to figure all these things out, and not just figuring them out, but also applying them in your life every day. Because if you're just reading, if you're just studying, it is better than doing nothing. But if you're not applying, then you're not going to get very far. So, wondering how you can apply what you have read in your life on a daily basis, all of that is Swadhyaya. And lastly, we have Ishwar Pranitan. Ishwar meaning God, the ruler of the universe, and Pranidhan is surrender. So surrender to God. This can also be looked at in different ways. One way to look at it is surrendering your small sense of self to God. So cultivating God consciousness, thinking about God, meditating on God, giving up identifying with a small body and learning to identify with the vastness of God, and cultivating that in your life. And again, that is something I cannot describe with words, but if you practice it, you will know how useful it is, because it is incredibly useful. And another way to look at it on a more mundane level is surrendering to God in terms of the outcomes that you experience in your life. So, for example, if you gave an exam and looking at it from the karma yoga perspective, that I do what I need to do and I give the results up to God. So I gave an exam, but God will decide. God, this ruler of the universe, this infinite consciousness, this intelligence that governs the whole universe, that controls the whole world, I will let that decide what the result of it is. Every day I go in and I do my work, and at the end of it, whether I'm successful or not, whether I win or lose, whether I fail, whether I do a fantastic job, whatever it is, I'm not to be concerned with that. My duty is to work. If you're familiar with the Bhagavad Gita, it often says that the yogi is entitled to action only, not to the fruits of action. So you learn to surrender the fruits of your actions, and you simply do what you do need to do and let God take care of the rest. This might not be it is very easy to implement and follow through. It might take some time. Oftentimes we are identified with a small sense of self. We think that, okay, I am the doer, I am successful, I fail, and then I beat myself up. I'm successful, and then I enjoy and I party, and I get all egotistical, like, okay, look at me, I'm so great. Things like that. We are very much used to it, and we identify with it a whole lot. And the goal of yoga, and again, self-realization, enlightenment, whatever you call it, the goal of that is to move away from the small sense of self and expand ourselves beyond it. So if you continue to act as if you are this little self who is doing this and doing that and trying to control the outcome and win and lose and attached to all of this, then you will continue to remain in the small sense of self, with limited to your identity, whatever it is. But if you want to go beyond these things, then you have to quit being so attached to all these, to the results of your actions. You have to let your body do what it needs to do. You have to let your personality play out the role that it needs to play out into the world. And eventually you have to let the wholeness of life, the supreme intelligence of the universe, take control and do what it needs to do, because it knows best. What is it that beats your heart? Do you consciously tell your heart to beat every day? Do you Are you the one who makes the sun rise and enliven this world with its beautiful rays? Are you the one that makes plants grow or rain fall on this earth? Do you do those things? Does anyone do those things really? There is, of course, those are things that are external to you, and you would argue that no, but I can't control those, but I can control what I do, what this body does. But do you really decide what this body does? I won't say much about this, but I would want you to contemplate it. It won't make much sense. It will get you all confused and puzzled, but I do recommend contemplating that. How much control do you really have in your life and on your outcomes? That is a fantastic contemplation. It's quite a scary one as well, because you won't like the answer to it. But yes, if you're not attached to your outcomes, then it's fine. So this ended up being quite a long video. I had no intentions of making it so long, but here we are. I hope it made some sense to you. I hope it was helpful to you in some way or the other. If it didn't, if you have any queries, feel free to drop them in the comments below. I don't have any scripts or anything. I usually just speak about things on the spot, which is why sometimes I think the videos can be a bit unstructured and random as well. So I apologize for that. But yeah, I hope this was helpful. I hope you enjoyed. And if you, yeah, like I said, if you have any queries, feel free to reach out. Thank you so much for watching it and being here until the end. And I'll see you in the next one. Goodbye. Take care.